Well, how about it, y'all? This is Daniel Nicholson with Nicholson Farms, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'd like to welcome you and invite you to hit that subscribe button. It'd mean a lot to us. But this afternoon, it's just like the past couple weeks. It's super hot and not really the kind of weather you want to start a new project on. And we really don't have too many projects right now that we want to get completed. But what we do have every afternoon is taking care of the animals in the garden. So today I figured we'd do a kind of a little update and also kind of show you my afternoon chores every afternoon pretty much at this time of the year. So let's just dive on into it. We got several different things to do. After a while, we're going to run up to the house and I'm going to show you what Maddie and I have got planned for this afternoon. It's going to be a long afternoon. But first, we're going to take care of all these animals and pick some fresh produce out the garden. So the first thing I do as soon as I get here in the afternoon is check up on all the animals. The garden can wait for a second. We need to make sure all the animals are doing good. This is our pen of bucks that we have right now. We have a Clyde, our Kiko buck in the back, registered Kiko buck, and Thunder here, the black one. He's our new Kiko buck, and all these are Kiko cross bucks that we're growing out. If you didn't catch a couple videos back, two of which we're going to use as cleanup bucks behind Clyde, and then the other two we're going to grow out just to see how they turn out. But they look good. We're about to get them some feed here in a second. Sirloin over here under the shade tree is our butcher steer. He's looking good. The rabbits, we'll check out the rabbits here in a second. I noticed my water tank is off the top of our rabbit tractor. Sirloin's stuck in this little pen right now, while the horses, I don't know if you can see, there's one behind us, the other one's up in the shade. While they're down here grazing on this pasture, I've got Sirloin locked up in this little pen by himself so that we can feed him separately. And he likes to knock down the rabbit's water at least once a day. So I've been filling it up about twice a day, once in the morning and in the afternoon. They're getting plenty of water. So the bucks are good. Before we feed them, we're gonna run up and check on the does. They're on the neighbor's pasture. They've been up there since this morning when I got a chance to sneak away from work at break to come let them out. So all the does and the doelings and all the little bucks that we weathered a couple weeks ago are down here on this old dried up pond. The dam busted out about 6 or 7 years ago during a hurricane. But they're just doing what goats do best, cleaning up brush. I wanted to try to get a head count on them. I always like to try to get a head count on them whenever I get off of work because they've been out here for several hours by themselves. I'm not too worried about them getting out, but we don't have a livestock guardian dog with them. We don't have one yet anyways. We want to get one soon. So I kind of worry about predators a little bit, but they're only out here during the day. They get out about 9:30 in the morning, and then they kind of put themselves up at night, and we shut the gate behind them. So they're looking good. Not going to get a head count right now, but we're going to let them keep doing their thing and enjoying the sweet brush, I guess. So this pasture that our neighbors own is about 15 acres roughly that the goats can graze. It's really worked out great this summer. We used it a little bit last summer, but not a lot. And I recently just walked the whole fence line probably about 2-3 months ago and kind of patched any holes that I'm really worried about them getting out at. Other than that, where this old pond comes in, there's a creek that goes through the center of that pond and out the back. So either the goats would have to cross a creek to get to some fence that they could get out of. But if you know goats, they don't like to get wet, so I'm not concerned about that at all. So it's really worked out well. Helped us kind of conserve the grass in our pastures. Helps us rotate them off of worms. And it's just working out great. I really appreciate our neighbors letting us do this. It means a lot to us, more than they know. They've got a good bit of land, and this little 15-acre chunk, they're not too worried about it. But it means more to us than they know. So in our last video, you saw where we picked up our bulk feed. That's what's in this sack here. This is a 16% beef conditioner blend. You kind of look at it and see how it's kind of milled up. It's got a pellet in there that's a 16% crude protein. It also has cottonseed meal, soybean meal, cracked corn, and a couple other good things in there. This is what we've been feeding our goats here for about a year now. And this is also what we feed our butcher steer. So typically I don't really feed our goats too much. Excuse me, Clyde, you got a sneeze in the background? But I don't really feed our goats too much. Those are not getting fed right now. They're having to depend on grass and find their food. They've got plenty of grass in front of them to get what they need. Our kids are on a creek feed. They'll be on that. Sorry, I'm sweating. But they'll be on that until they can't fit in the creek feeder anymore. That's just going to help them grow out, reach a marketable weight a little bit quicker. We do nutritionally flush our does 2 to 3 weeks before breeding. We'll start increasing some nutrition using grain, and then also we'll give them a little bit of grain in the last trimester of their pregnancy. Back here with the bucks though, it's a little bit different story. This pasture behind us is about an acre, a little bit over an acre. And on that acre, we're running our 2 mature bucks. We're running our butcher steer, and right now we've got our 4 young bucks in here as well. And right now, the horses are down here too. So just trying to move all the animals around kind of gets a little hectic keeping these bucks separate. You want to keep them away from the does so we don't have any accidental breeding. So we keep them a little bit of grain because typically this pasture back here suffers the worst. This is kind of our, I don't want to say a sacrifice pasture, but this pasture gets the most abuse, and so I'm just kind of helping these bucks out, stay in shape, grow, especially these young ones. I want them to grow out pretty well. But what I've been doing, I've been giving each of them about a half a pound to 3/4 of a pound of feed a day. This scoop right here holds right at about 2 pounds of this feed. So we're gonna scoop out about 2.5 scoops, and we'll give it to our bucks, and they'll be set. So we feed in, this is a 8-inch pipe, cut in half, mounted on some boards. I want to say this one's right at 12 foot, maybe a little bit longer. But this is what we feed all our goats in. Your feeders need to be off the ground. They don't need to be picking up more parasites off the ground while they're eating grain. You're doing something right here, trying to help their body condition. Putting it on the ground, you're going to increase your chances for worms. So you want to make sure that you're feeding them off the ground, sorry. And also, this trough needs to be long enough that all these goats can eat. If I was just to put a short 8-foot trough or something like that in here, these 2 bigger bucks are going to bully on these guys. So they got room to move back and forth down the feed line and make sure they get a bite. So next up on the list is Mr. Sirloin. He's probably about 800 pounds now, maybe about 750, somewhere in between there. And typically, well, I know what we did on brisket is we gave him 2% of his body weight in grain. We've been doing a little bit less on sirloin just because we want to slow them down a little bit because we don't have a processing date until January for them. We don't want to get them too big. And also, brisket was a little bit bigger than what we wanted, and we spent a little bit more money on brisket than what we wanted. We have grass out here, so we want to kind of push it a little bit less. So he's weighing about 800 pounds. If I was going to feed him 2% his body weight, I'd give him 16 pounds a day. He's been getting about 12 for the past couple weeks, and we're going to stay on that. He's not quite finishing his food every day now. Whenever he starts cleaning that up all the way, we'll bump him up a little bit more. That's kind of how I judge it. I give him a certain amount of food for a while. If they clean it up every day for a while, then I'll bump it up a little bit more until they clean all that up and just kind of slowly put more grain in them. And personally, I've never really had any grass-fed beef, so I don't really know the difference in the flavor. But I know those steaks that we got back from brisket last year with grain in them was absolutely phenomenal. So I don't mind putting a little bit of grain into the animals. Eventually, if we get a larger place and say we're raising 3 or 4 steers and a bunch of goats and stuff like that, I wouldn't mind trying the grass-fed. But just on our small acreage, we can't do it. So until then, he's going to be getting grain. So he did a whole lot better yesterday filling up his grain than he has been. He's still got a little bit in there. We can go ahead and top him off. Let him come enjoy his snack. He might not come eat right now. He typically likes to kind of wait till I leave. He's pretty relaxed right now. He's just laying in the shade. Looks like it's a hard life. So next up is the rabbits. Like I said, that water bucket was knocked over by Mr. Sirloin, but we're just gonna dip some water out of the water trough for them. Be enough until tomorrow. It's probably gonna get dumped over tomorrow anyway, so there's no need to fill it all the way up. We're gonna hook it up. I don't know if I'm filming good or not, but they've got water now. These are the male rabbits in our rabbit tractor. A couple of them we need to butcher. We've been raising rabbits out to sell and butcher, but the males are in here. I feed them about every other day or so because they have grass. They're on grass. I moved them yesterday. Been moving them about every 2 days, so they are good to go. As far as the girls over here, I filled up their feeders yesterday, so they should be good. That one's good. 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 And good. So the girls are good. Their water's good. I topped it off yesterday. Go around in the back and we'll show you some of the rabbits. So here we are at the back of the cage. This is the mom. She's got 3. This one over here, she had 2. This mom doesn't have any right now. This is her last 2 daughters. So these are already spoken for. It has been so hot, it's not worth breeding. These 2 does right here, the first time they had babies was these 2 sets right here. And I don't know if it was just poor mothering ability or if it was the heat, but we lost several babies out of both of these litters. And so we're just not gonna breed right now. Anyways, the buck is not really fertile during the heat. The cooler weather kind of makes him a little more fertile. So we're gonna be waiting till it starts to cool down, probably the end of September, and then we'll start breeding again. So that's it for the animals. Everything's looking good. Everybody, for the most part, is just kind of hanging out, avoiding the heat, staying in the shade. But that's it for the animals right now. We still need to top off the crete feeders, but we're gonna do that on my way out. So let's go to the garden and kind of show you what's going on in there. We've been super busy with the garden and produce sales. So let's go check out this garden. So for the most part, the garden is exploding right now, picking a lot every day. Don't mind these weeds. That's my cover crop, I guess. Didn't really want to break the surface of the garden if there's a living root in there. Those weeds in the center is not hurting anything. So we're gonna leave them be. But over here, I don't know if you can see, we've got a butterfly on that marigold, and there's several hummingbirds flying around, going to these marigolds. There's 2 of them right here. They're gonna fly off. Ain't no way I'll capture those. You might can see them a little bit right there. But everything is exploding. The cucumbers did not do good this year. It was really dry for a long period of time, and then for about 3 weeks straight, we got rain every day. And after that, the cucumbers just started dying out. I don't know if they just got a shock or what. We got a couple, picking a couple every day. But the green beans, man, this is the first year I've ever planted pole beans. We are picking a bunch of them, but we're also selling about every bit of it that we take to the farmer's market. Zucchini starting to play out some. Didn't really do too well on the zucchini and squash this year. Part of it was this tree right here shading these few out. But also, I think it was the same kind of scenario, just no rain. Although we have drip irrigation in here, it's just not the same as rainfall. But tomatoes doing good. Last week, we hit a high on tomatoes. I think we picked a half a bushel about every day last week. This week, they're kind of a little bit slower. There's a nice big one that'd be perfect for a tomato sandwich. We'll pick it in a second. Got a couple squash we need. Looks like you're getting close. Yep, there's one that needs to be picked. But other than that, we have been picking a good many okra. Okra is one of those summer plants that loves it hot and dry. July and August, when you're not picking anything else in the garden, you'll be picking okra. So it's starting to come on strong. That's about the perfect size right there. It's about as long as your finger. It's gonna be nice and tender. Peppers, I picked a ton of peppers yesterday. That's partial of what me and Maddie's gonna be working on at the house this afternoon. Just as a hint, I'm not gonna give it away yet. Sweet corn, man, I wish we could plant a whole acre. sweet corn. I cut down these 4 rows the other day and fed them to the goats. These 2 rows have already been picked. I'm gonna cut those down on Friday morning when it's not hot as sin out here. So we'll be feeding those to the goats. That'll probably be in our next video. But these 4 rows right here is our next batch, and I guarantee you about 40 to 50% of this corn is already spoken for. Every year we could pick off that other corn over there. We sold every bit of it. We didn't even have time. We didn't even have a chance to take it to the farmer's market. It just got sold at the house. So, I mean, that's a good thing. We didn't have to haul it down there. Got it sold. It was good to go. So as far as the farmer's market go, I have not made a video yet. I started a video about 3 weeks ago, but never finished it. We got super busy at the farmer's market, and there's a lot of people, and I didn't really feel like recording. So we will be making a farmer's market video coming up, but we have been doing really, really well this year. A lot of it has to do is we planted a lot more corn this year. That was very profitable for us. But also the tomatoes have been selling really well, especially them big ones. A lot of people at the farmer's market live in town. They don't have tomato plants, and they're buying those big tomatoes to make sandwiches with. But we also sell a lot of them for like the smaller ones for salads. And then we have a couple people that buy a good many to make salsa and things like that. So tomatoes are doing well. I just wish we had some more squash and zucchini and cucumbers to sell. I could sell all that too if I had it, but we just don't have it. But we do have some more started. Let me show you. So over here we got 24 more cucumber plants started. My dad planted some straight neck squash, but I think his seed was bad. It didn't come up. We've got to replant that. We do need some more squash for the late farmer's market, and we need some more cucumbers because we haven't sold hardly any this year. So over here I took some cuttings off of our tomato plants the other day. Excuse the crop. It's just holding the plants up from falling over. But let's take a look and see if we've got any roots started. Oh yeah, looking good. Need to add a little bit more water. Put my crock back in there. So those are going to be our late squash, cucumbers, and tomatoes. And let me show you something real quick if I can find one. How to take a cutting off a tomato. Super simple. Take a cutting, put it in water, let it develop some roots. Then you're going to put it in the ground in some real moist soil. Make sure it stays water, and then you've got a tomato plant for free. So this right here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is something I would take a cutting off of. This little stem right here is what you call a sucker. You have your main stem of your tomato plant coming up, and you've got a branch off. If you have a branch off in the main stem, and you have a plant coming out of that fork, if you cut it off right there, stick it in some water, you're gonna start some roots. This plant has another one right below it, if you can see it right there. And there's another one. So just a tip, that's a super easy way to get some free tomato plants. But I'm about to grab some baskets. I'm not gonna bore you with filming me pick the garden. I'm gonna pick the garden real quick. Picked it pretty hard the past couple of days, so I don't know how much we're gonna get out, but I'm gonna pick it real quick and we'll show you what we got today. It's a little bit slower today, but we got a decent amount of green beans picked, several tomatoes. I like to pick my tomatoes a little ripe. They'll turn on the table. If you let them ripen up all the way on the vine, you're gonna get all like these dark spots, and also they're gonna split. Got a couple little squash, and also probably about a half pound of okra. Well, for the past 2 times I've checked the creek feeders, I check them about every 2 to 3 days. They've almost been at least half full. I don't know if it's getting to where some of these bigger kids can't fit in this creek feeder anymore, or if they're just getting enough to eat over on the neighbor's property before they come in. They're not really over here as much. Either way, Probably all right with me. Saving me some money in feed. A lot of these bigger ones, they don't have to keep growing as fast as they are. We're not planning on marketing them till about, I don't know, January. So some of these younger kids can catch up by eating the grain. That'd be just fine. That way we'll have a little bit of a more of a uniform kid crop. That's one of the bigger ones that just came through. So maybe they are fitting through, they're just not eating as much. And I saw this one up on the creek feeders earlier today. That's why my lid won't stay shut apparently. Get down. Since everybody's already up, it'll save me a trip back down the road this afternoon if I go ahead and shut the gate. But all that's left to do now is to just get our final count, make sure everybody made it back in case somebody got their head stuck in the fence over there. And then we're gonna go check on what Maddie's got going on at the house. We're back at the house now, done with all the chores this afternoon. Please ignore the kitchen mat. And Maddie has been repainting all our cabinets. But this afternoon she's been busy making some pepper jelly. We got a peach kind and a strawberry. We're gonna try to sell at the farmer's market. Also had several small tomatoes and stuff that was about to go rotten for us tomatoes wise. So we are making some marinara sauce tonight too. So we got a lot of canning to do. A busy afternoon. It's about 6 o'clock now. We got to cook supper at some point. So we're gonna end this video now. I really appreciate you hanging out with me this afternoon. Wish us luck as we try to do this, but if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, and we'll see y'all on the next one.